This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I'm your host and Captain Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is me skinny rich friend and first mate.
Yeah, it's Mozz.
Welcome back, Mozz. Arg.
All right.
Tonight's episode, Season 2, Episode 8 of Agent Carter, The Edge of Mystery. Peggy and Sousa propose a trade with Whitney Frost, while the SSR gets help from Howard Stark that may be the key to eliminating Zero Matter. Metin Hussein, again, is our director. Writers, of course, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, getting those Marvel Created By credits. Down here, we have created bys for Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. Brian Englestein gets a written by credit. Sue Chung and Eric Pearson, again, are our executive story editors, and two executive story editors being held up by one hard-working written by, she got a written by credit too, Lindsay Allen. Lindsay Allen. All right, okay. And this episode actually opens up with a flashback, if I recall correctly, to Peggy and Jarvis's first mission together, as Peggy is trying to figure out how to handle the explosive chemical that Howard Stark has created that was stolen from him, and Jarvis is walking her through the process and speaks at length to her, and then, of course,
and that's supposed to be season 1, right?
Yeah, that's season 1. That is, okay. Remember when she, has the chemical, she brings it back to her apartment, she has to find the chemicals to...
Right, that's the thing that ends up being Cap's blood.
No, this was the first episode. This was when they steal the explosive chemical from the guy named Spider.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I forget what they called that, but it caused the Roxanne plant to implode,
right? And
all of that fun stuff. So in this is where we first get the "Don't make promises you can't keep" line here, because of course he says, "Oh yes, she's quite fun." But I doubt she's going to be too much of an intrusion in our lives. And Anna says, don't make promises you can't keep. Then after that, we actually, which was weird, because at first I thought that was supposed to be a flashback as well. And we come to Thompson in London trying to drink a colleague of his under the table to get Peggy's secret file, which is actually a fully redacted file, but has some comment in there about numerous civilian casualties. Because of course he's looking for something to embarrass,
counterbalance the leverage that she has on him.
Yeah, it's effectively so. But again, and this is where, and of course later, that's where Peggy is going to tell him, you really think that that's not convenient that you got this. And then, of course, when Thompson will later confront Kurtwood Smith on the subject, Kurtwood Smith says, essentially, it doesn't matter what's true. It matters what's been written down. That this is an official document. And
because it doesn't matter what happened. It matters what's true. This is an official document. That makes it true.
And he actually makes, Kurtwood even points out to him, like, you know more than anyone that the truth is irrelevant to what is in the document. Suggesting that Kurtwood knows about the soldiers he killed too. And this is where I want to get into what is Thompson. So Thompson, if you want to understand who Thompson is, you should think about Dr. Zachary Smith from Lost in Space.
Explain that to me, because I didn't see that.
Oh, okay. So Dr. Smith, he's essentially the villain of Lost in Space, but also a member of the crew. So in his original story, he's the one who sabotages the Jupiter 2, so that the Jupiter 2 gets lost in space, gets thrown off course, and yada, yada, yada. Ironically, it later turns out that had he not done that, the Jupiter 2 would have been destroyed in a meteor shower like 2 weeks later. That by him sabotaging it actually saved everyone's life, but also got them lost in space. So just that's something that they put into the story. And I think they did that intentional retcon because they realized they had a real problem, because they originally wrote him to be a very evil guy, but they eventually had to work him into something else. And what they eventually worked him into is a very venial coward. And he was a venial coward because he was always looking for what was the best angle for him. And he did a lot of things that put the crew in danger because he was looking for the best angle for him. And I think Thompson falls into that idea of a guy who's always looking for the best angle for him.
My only problem is that was his character for the beginning of the first season. They gave him this wonderful redemptive arc. He became a likable guy, and then all of a sudden they undo all that work.
I think you overemphasize what they did. Because even at the end of that first arc, he says, "Don't worry, I'll tell him." And then we kind of get the implication he never told him. He never. He went into.
I don't think he ever made that promise or that laid that intention there at all. Yeah, he was just like, I got to do what I got to do. It's like a giant force that's moving against them, and just because he has these ideals doesn't mean he can change the system. There's nothing he can say that's going to make Kurtwood give her the same amount of respect. So.
Yeah, but I think that's also an easy cop out too.
Easier than all the other cop-outs he's taking, or that the writers are taking by doing this.
Well, but this is the thing. I think that I'm not saying he's not this. I'm just saying they've been consistent in it. I think throughout the whole time, every time you think he's like, oh, maybe he's a redeemable guy, in a scene or two, they basically undo it again, and they basically constantly have him being basically where. He'll give you grudging respect for a scene, but then by the next scene, he's forgotten about it. Because it doesn't serve him. Because he is, as we say, he's a coward and he's venial. He does have a line he's not willing to cross, and we do see him get that point in this episode.
I don't think that point was delivered really well either. I think it was just convenient that they needed him there to do this. He's just a prop. He's not a real character on the show. He's just a prop.
They're these aren't real people.
No. But Kurtwood's a fully developed, logical, it makes sense relative to human behavior character. Peggy makes sense. Jarvis makes sense. Anna makes sense. Wilk makes sense. Dottie makes sense. Everybody makes sense. He's just the one sort of.
I don't actually think Dottie ever makes sense. I think Dottie.
Oh, I like her. I mean, I think she makes her character.
I like her. I love her. No, but I don't think she makes sense. I think Dottie is as stock a character as you can come with and is so malleable.
Right. No, but
especially because she is meant to be this chameleon character who you never know what's going on in her head.
Right, but they're consistent with that, and they keep her like, okay, this is who she is.
Well, sort of. I mean, again, I don't know how consistent it is to say they keep her who she is if who she is meant to be, a constantly shifting, reflection on the water. I don't think she's ever really held down to any firm idea.
Yeah, how I see that is she never lets us see who she is, because she's been conditioned over years to always have an image, and we don't ever really see her. We see her putting on an act that's appropriate for, the situation she's trying to get something out of.
No.
But with Thompson, they sort of don't know what they want to do with him.
Yeah, well, no. Like I said, I think they see, and this is where we'll disagree. I think they want him to be the Dr. Smith. They want him to be, and for what it's worth, Dr. Smith was never a well-rounded character either. He had two modes. He had greed and cowardness. And
I don't know what the rest of that show was like, but the rest of this show is way better than the presentation of this one character. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, well, without a doubt, he's not meant to be. Here's what I'll say. I think that if you gave him 4 seasons, by the 4th season, Thompson might have gotten to a point where he was consistently well written as.
I think he was well written in season 1.
No,
I think
he was not. See, I think you wanted him to be, but throughout everything, he has grudging respect for Peggy, but he never once gives her respect more than 2 seasons.
When it counts, he does. When the rest of the world's pressure's not on him, he did. When they were in battle, when they were in combat, he did. And the fact that
when he was in combat, he basically wet himself, and then Peggy gives him a cover story.
No. But he relents to her. He relents to her authority when they're in combat. So it's like.
Well, it's because he was completely out of his depth.
Right. But I think the other thing that was important for him was.
Benefited him to do it.
Through her, he was able to see himself for the first time, because much like Dottie, he's so concerned with preserving this secret that he can't be himself. He's never been himself around another person because he's so closed off because of this shameful secret that he's always trying to put an image to protect. And for a moment, it was out there. He was able to talk to somebody about it openly, and he was himself. He found himself, and that is a beautiful, powerful moment that sort of gave value to that redemptive arc, and then they took it away.
Well, because he immediately has to take it away, because he just gave her everything she needs to destroy him, which means that now he has a sort of Damocles hanging over his head. And
but even that is an illogical conclusion, because to think that Peggy would have the kind of character to do that to somebody is illogical.
She threatens him with it in the first season. She does. She makes reference to it at least once or twice when she needs to remind Thompson that she has this information on him. So, no, I mean, I think that Thompson has been consistent. He's been consistently a coward. He's been consistently venial. He's been consistently happy to take the praise when it's available. I don't think he's ever shown the kind of nobility that we see of other characters. I think mostly...
No, but it definitely pales in comparison to what he is now.
I don't know. Again, I think that when you look at how he has been this season, like I said, and this we can agree to disagree on this.
And then he's completely sold. He's completely sold on Kurtwood's plan, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't make sense. Nah, I'm a good guy. Yeah, I'm here. I'm just a good guy. I did nothing wrong. I'm just one of the guys.
He's never completely sold on Kurtwood. He knows Kurtwood is into bad things, right, but he feels that these bad things are only... So essentially, he is, and this is what it is, he is exactly who Kurtwood is. Kurtwood is a venial guy who wants to maintain the status quo with him on top. And that's why Kurtwood's so out of his depth. Because like Sousa, he wants to maintain this status quo because that's the only thing he knows. The only thing he knows is the world that he wants to be. And you'll recall that earlier in the season, Kurtwood basically turned on the charm with Peggy and tried to show her respect, and because he thought it could get him somewhere. And then when that
to me, that made sense right for Kurtwood's character. That seemed, I had no problem with that.
I think it's the exact same thing that Thompson has done.
Yeah, I see it very differently.
But, I do that is very much what I think that is very much how they've always written him since the first season onward. I don't think that they've ever really committed to the idea that this character gets a redemptive arc this early in the series.
Yeah,
in fact, I actually think that the closest he gets to the redemptive arc is the comedy bit in here where he gets his brain wiped. You know, because that's where he actually sacrifices himself, and you almost
he doesn't. He Homer Simpsons his way out of it. That's what they've turned him into. They've turned him into Homer Simpson. But usually, you know, shows take about 6 seasons to turn a character into Homer Simpson. They did it in season 2.
And again, I would say he wasn't in season 1. I would say that, you know.
I disagree. I really liked his arc in season 1. I thought they did a great job.
Well, I think we've been disagreeing with it since season 1, so yeah. I think at least we're consistent. But let's get back to the rest of this story, because there was a lot that happens here. First, we get this. We decide that we're going to do a double cross on Whitney because we want to get Wilkes back. So we set up the Faraday cage in the moving truck that they have, and they're going to give because you know obviously Whitney wants the uranium rods. Only Susan knows where they are. And, of course, it's very fascinating that they wind up being hidden in plain sight, which is consistent with that. You know, that's the best place to hide. Where do you hide weird scientific materials? Probably in the lab, because no one's going to know what it is we're looking at. But we get our scientist back again, who, man, he is just weird. And you kind of like, you know, what's because we get our redhead back too. Rose. We get Rose back, and we get Samberly. And you know, I almost feel bad that if they had given this show 4 seasons, Rose and Samberly would have wound up together, and it would have always been an uncomfortable awkwardness. You know, because clearly Rose
and Samberly would have been like an interesting gender reversal of the honeymooners.
You know, I mean, honestly, what it is it's kind of an Urkel and Laura kind of thing.
You're right. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's all because although the difference is that Rose has been leading Samberly on.
Right.
To manipulate him to get him to do sciencey stuff for them.
Do his job.
Well, no, his job is to listen to whoever's in charge, which is Kurtwood Smith, you know, so.
I know, but like he needs a little bit of extra motivation to get the job right, because he's not, you know.
Yeah, I do grok what you're saying there, but you know, I very much feel that it is it's an unfortunate aspect of it that Samberly is very like into Rose, and Rose is
into her job.
Yeah, into her job. And you know, but the thing is, there's a weirdness to it too, because I don't know if it's specifically that she is just manipulating him, leading him on for this, or if she just, it's like she could be interested in him, but he's such an idiot, you know, that he does find himself very wound up, you know, very self-aggrandizing, very, you know, very much, well, you know, like there's this great line in there when they actually, because of course, plot line in this, Howard sends them the designs for a gamma cannon, which is...
Where did that come from? How did he know? What is that about? Are they going to explain that?
What, the gamma cannon? Oh, because it's Howard Stark and he's a genius.
Gotcha.
And he was studying whatever this stuff was, and then he goes and gets another scientist in Bolivia to help him. Well, that's more practical than flying that scientist up. Who knows? But yes. So then him and that scientist working on it, based on what he knows about what this dark matter is and or dark zero matter is, and what it's supposed to do, they figure out that the gamma cannon will essentially, you know, it's basically gonna reverse whatever whatever it's gonna do. You know, they ask Samberly if it'll work, and he says, and it's funny with Samberly because first he's like, Howard Stark wants me to build something for him, and at first he's like really in awe and in reverence of it, But by the end, he's like, well, it will work because I made some modifications to Howard Stark's design. And it's like, who are you to make modifications to Howard Stark's design, Samberly? Oh.
Yeah, this is true. I hope it doesn't come back to bite them in the butt.
Well, so getting into that, because we get two very interesting. First off, they try to trick Whitney, because they go, yes, they make false plutonium rods, and Samberly, for what it's worth, mocks them up. He gets like dummy rods, covers them with radium, and then it's like, yeah, these will look like that, like they'll do the Geiger counter test, and it'll give them the right radiation level, and they'll feel it's the right thing, which, when you think about it, that seems really unlikely. But it works for the story, especially because, it's just a mobster holding a Geiger counter. He said, does it say 30? Yeah, it says 30, so it's 30. But they bring them in, and they do the exchange, and then they basically, and prior to this, we have a neat scene with Whitney and Wilkes, where Whitney has been observing him.
Finally wins him over.
Knows how long that everything, how long he can maintain this when he's going to go intangible again. But they basically run with Wilkes, and then Wilkes basically says, well, where are the rods? And then he basically phases out, jumps out of the truck, because he's actually working with Whitney.
And he's learning to control his power.
Yeah, that is the most interesting, is he actually can control it. He just phases out, he jumps out of the car, and he can, he basically has this really cool phasing superpower now. And he goes to work with Whitney. Prior to this, there's a lot that goes on with Jarvis and Anna. Jarvis is told that he and Anna will never have children.
And then he starts making, promises that he can't keep.
Yeah, exactly, which they keep on doing. It's like, and he also doesn't tell her.
Right. That's what do you think the right move there is?
I think the right move would have been, to let the nurse talk to her about it, like he said, but he's like pushes that off, So does she just go through her life never knowing, or
no? I assume that his goal is to at least let her recover, and then when she gets home to break it to her, so she doesn't have to deal with any more stress than she already is.
Yeah, you can hope for the best, but then again, we also see that he is
right.
And this is also one of these weird things with him and Rose, as to who's the agent that gets to go on this. That Peggy's going to take Jarvis instead of Rose. Now, granted, possibly wise because Jarvis is going to insist because he wants his revenge on Whitney. So maybe that's why Rose doesn't go. And basically Rose gets put in charge of taking care of Anna. But at the same time, Rose is a very capable agent. We've already seen.
And I think that's why he says, he charges her with protecting her because he knows that she can handle herself.
Yeah. I guess it's just a question of who's really the better person to leave behind to take care of Anna. Is it Jarvis or is it Rose? And maybe Rose would be more useful.
For sure, and probably less of a problem.
Yeah.
For them.
Because it's not as personal for him. Although I guess maybe the counter argument is that but also Rose didn't want to have to spend the whole time with Samberly. So all comes back to Samberly, I guess. Waka waka. Yeah. But moving right along. They do get they do the bomb tests. They do once again. But before that, we actually see Rose is talking to Anna that Jarvis gave her his last will and testament. Wrote that up before he goes on this mission because he doesn't know if he's coming back. Bum bum bum, dramatic music. But they do manage to open up the doorway to the other side. And then this is where it gets interesting, is, throughout this whole time, Whitney's been saying, do you hear the voice? Do you hear the voice in your head? Who's talking, And this is, I guess we're meant to think, is that whatever is on the other side of the door calling to them. But once the door is open, Wilkes hears it, and Whitney no longer does. And then Wilkes gets brought up by the gateway and is getting pulled into it. And Whitney is basically being left behind. That she is being left behind for this man. Not to put too fine a point on it from her mind, this colored man is being chosen above her now. And this is horrifying to her. And I think this is something that is going to get brought up in the next episode, that, she really felt this was hers. This was her prize. This is what she was working for. But the thing on the other side, the thing that grants the power, is not going to choose her.
And, what if her giving her dark matter to him transferred some sort of something where she's responsible for her not being the one chosen?
Well, that's a possibility.
She's got to feel a tremendous amount of guilt from that perspective.
Well, yeah, I mean, for whatever the reason it is, yeah, I mean, it could be that he gave her the power, and then there's maybe even this secondary aspect of it, which is that, he's the better scientist, even, that the machine, that the thing on the other side knows this is the one who will know dark matter. This is the one who's going to understand zero energy and how to bring me into this universe. All she's did was drop a bomb again to open the doorway. This one can, make a better doorway. And for what it's worth, when they fire the gamma cannon, and which is kind of cool because we have Sousa sort of doing all the measurements. Although as it turns out, he doesn't really know what he's doing. Well, he knows what he's doing, but he's makes him like, my dad was in the artillery corps. He says, really? Your dad was in? He says, no, not really. But they just didn't want Samberly to fire it because they knew Samberly would miss. But they do shoot the gamma cannon. The gamma cannon strikes the rift, and the rift closes. And that leaves Wilkes dropped down to Earth and
spat
out, and something is clearly crawling under his skin.
Yep.
And it's funny, it reminds me of, if you saw the Green Lantern movie, when the Parallax is underneath the guy with the big growing head, his head, that you have that thing growing on in there. So it is, it's interesting because clearly, as we said, the rift chose Wilkes. Wilkes has now been through the door, has seen the other side, and he has come back with some sort of something has come back with him. And we will find out what that something is next week, I imagine. All right, Mozz, any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
No, I think we got to it.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting close to the end.
So there are 2 episodes left?
2 episodes left. Next week is the penultimate episode. Take a drink.
Nice. The one thing, did we talk about Sousa actually getting there and shooting Whitney Frost and her coming back from the dead?
Oh yeah, no, we did not mention that. Yes, so actually, does Sousa shoot him or does Jarvis shoot her?
Jarvis shoots her. He walks right up to her and shoots her point blank range and is completely self-satisfied and come to terms with any consequences that may come from it.
Yep, and then the zero matter comes right through the little hole and fixes her right back up. And that is when it all goes bad, as it were,
Yeah, but to her credit, she still got an eye for the big picture. Does Whitney Frost, and she gets up. No, don't shoot them to the goons because we need them because that's the only leverage we have on Dr. Wilkes.
Yes. Well, yes, because they do know that Dr. Wilkes has a feeling. And for what it's worth, we get that where we come into that idea about everyone's feelings in this. And, Sousa basically saying, look, I know you have feelings for Wilkes. Really, he does make this point. I know you have feelings for Wilkes. And do just understand, he's the enemy now. And she's like trying to make excuses for why he betrayed him. It's like, no, he betrayed us. He's with her now. We can't treat him like anything other than the enemy. And, I think that's hard for Peggy, but I think she understands it too. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
But it's also her sort of bent towards the light, towards good, saying that everybody has a chance at redemption. That I don't think that's really him. That was him under a very specific set of extreme stresses that he made that choice. I don't think, we should not trust that in regular circumstances he wouldn't be a perfectly stand-up individual.
Yeah. Peggy would probably trust Thompson too.
I know. Ugh.
Anyway, we don't want to get back into that argument. All right. So, Mozz, when you're listening, a lot of people out there right now, they're listening to this this podcast on some sort of a headset-mounted listening device. And if they're doing that, they may find that that headset-mounted listening device, maybe they just got a pair of headphones from the dollar store, I don't know, but they just do not sound good. And if they'd like to correct that, they can use the coupon code Southgate. Go over to tweakedaudio.com, use that coupon code, and get a discount on any of the fine audio products that they will find at tweakedaudio.com. Once they've done that, if they still need something to fill their time with, while they're waiting for the next episode to download, they can go to huntakiller.com, use again that same coupon code Southgate to get a discount on Hunt a Killer, which is essentially, it's like if you were to have an escape room delivered to your house every month. It follows the conceit that Michelle Gray, a PI, is trying to crack a cold case and needs your help, and they'll send you clues and whatnot. And coming up from them, they are branching into a new genre. They will have a Hunt a Killer story about the Blair Witch. So watch for that. You remember the Blair Witch from the what was that, the late 90s, Mozz?
Oh, who doesn't? That was one of those giant, amazingly beautiful PR campaigns of all times.
Yes.
And then the movie severely disappointed, in my opinion. But that PR campaign was one of the most brilliant things I've seen.
It was guerrilla marketing for one of the first real guerrilla films. It was great. But if you'd like to watch the Blair Witch Project, I bet you, if you go down into our show notes, you're going to find a link to Amazon.com. Click on that. I bet you can find the Blair Witch there for sale or rent or just to watch on Amazon Prime. And if you purchase something through that link, like the Blair Witch Project, you will actually be helping out the station. It will cost you nothing, but it's going to help us out here. And so we would greatly appreciate that. And in the meantime, if anyone would like to reach out to you, Mozz, and talk to you about the things we've talked about today, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzoor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzoor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Poz once did back in the day, you can do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet things, possibly the final few episodes of Amphibia on Disney XD. It's a great cartoon, lots of lore, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Ding!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, me hearties. You have gone through another week with us here on the high seas of streaming content. Please come back again next week as we once again dive in full stream ahead. Arrgh.